Today, a couple of quick announcements. First, our friend Cy from Masters of Maple is manufacturing a limited run of his really popular Trash Talk snares. All profits from those will benefit the MusiCares Foundation and specifically the COVID-19 Relief Fund. Also, our friend Chris Caraba is doing a live stream performance this evening at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. And that's benefiting the Music Health Alliance. Both worthy causes benefiting musicians. You can find more information about the Trash Talk snare drum at mdrums.com, and you can find Chris's live stream performance at dashboardconfessional.lnk.to. This is Joe Wong. Welcome to the Trap Set. During the age of social distancing, we're recording remotely and releasing episodes almost every day. Today's guest is drummer Sean McGuinness, a brutal shredder with a heart of gold. Over the past 15 years, Sean's band, Pissed Jeans, has released a series of excellent albums on Sub Pop. Aside from his work in the band, Sean is also a partner in Lunar Inn, a bar and restaurant in his native Philadelphia. I spoke to Sean last week.
Hello.
Hi, Sean.
How are you?
Fine, how are you?
I'm feeling good, man.
What have you been up to today?
I did a little bit of some music editing this morning. We did a little bit of, gym class with my son. I jammed some tunes in the basement in the afternoon. We made some dinner. We had a little temper tantrum action right before bed, and then now, what time is it now? It's around 11 o'clock. We're about to get started on our day here, I guess.
It's 11 o'clock in Philadelphia where I'm calling you.
Yeah, it is.
Did you have temper tantrums when you were a kid?
I did. Yeah, actually. Yeah. It's funny, I was thinking about that earlier. I was like I think I was difficult, not as, my son's 8 now, he's not difficult, but, he has temper tantrums in the way I used to, like, at least lash out and just have sort of like these explosions of anger that really aren't directed at anything other than just sort of like, I don't know, maybe it's a, I don't really have any strong theories other than it could be always a form of just figuring out how to communicate. I don't know. I feel like maybe that's sort of what mine were over, not knowing how to communicate something or feeling like I had some sort of something built up and didn't know how to like channel it or funnel it in the right direction. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I still don't.
Well, what's your strategy? What's your strategy for dealing with it when your child has a meltdown?
I don't have a singular one yet. We're still trying different things too. Right now it's to try to remain calm, and like if he's at the point where he's sort of he's demanding his space. So like giving him trying to like listen to him and make sure that I'm listening and doing what he's like asking in those moments, but also trying to ask direct questions about how he's feeling to coax out how he's trying to feel when he calms down, giving him some space and getting him to calm down. I don't really how to get someone to calm. I don't know how to get someone to calm down. I try not to escalate the situation. Sometimes
I think you're supposed to scream at him.
I mean,
chill the fuck out.
No, I don't. I've tried that. I've tried. Sometimes I've lost my temper. I've explored new range. Being like a dad has like definitely, as well as like has let me enter new explore new areas of emotion on both ends of this on all ends of the scale that I haven't experienced before. And so unfortunately, some of that has been like, you get mad sometimes and frustrated, and it's hard to control those emotions. And you have to like. It's taken me for as long as he wants to, if he wants to lash out and have like meltdowns about he's frustrated, or if I think it's about communication, it's still like I look at myself and I'm almost 39 and I'm still trying to figure out how to sometimes deal with like those. Sometimes there's like emotion or some feeling in me that I still don't know how to express it in a kind or like articulate way. I'm still trying to figure that out. I guess maybe I need to like remember in those moments to like, what's that called? Where you have to like, I don't know, maybe it's empathy, where I should just like remember that, I'm still dealing with those sort of like, those like, I guess, failures to communicate. What we have here is a failure to communicate. What's the, Cool Hand Luke, the end of that movie?
Yeah. You have an inner corrections officer and an inner prisoner.
I mean, it's like I'm just trying to like. Sometimes I try to remember what it's like being a kid, and it can be really hard, especially in like this shit that we're in right now. I can't even imagine what it must be like being a kid. So like, in terms of being like an 8-year-old and trying to deal with some emotion, and also having to like deal with this situation and watch, I guess your parents also struggle to deal with this situation and like navigate what, call whatever you want, like this new normal or something. But like, I hope that like, at least he feels some sense of like secure. I hope we're doing a good enough job for him. I mean, maybe, and sometimes I think that like we have these like little meltdowns or like, I don't know what else to call them. Because like, we're all just like having trouble dealing with it, and we're all just sort of like, I don't know. Shit's not easy, man.
I mean, pretty much everybody that has been on this show in the last month, all of whom are adults, have expressed a similar sentiment as far as everyday life just being a little bit more difficult.
I mean, I guess I don't want to even say difficult. Like, I don't want to sound like I don't want to come off like I'm whining. It's just sort of like,
why don't you want to come off like you're whining? Were you raised Catholic or something?
I mean, yeah,
there
totally.
You go, McGuinness.
I mean, I can't, like, not strictly, but like, I'm not, come on, I can't blame, I guess maybe it was blame like Catholicism or whatever, but like,
it's not about blame, it's just about kind of tracing the origin of that mentality.
So, yeah, there's a lot, man, there's probably a lot of that I could really get into.
Well, when you were
time now.
When you were 8 years old, what kind of music were you aware of, and what were you listening to?
Jeez, I think it was probably like there's a lot of Michael Jackson and Paul Simon, and I had a little radio.
How old are you?
I listened. I'm 30. I'm almost 39.
Okay, 38. So this would have been Graceland era. Paul Simon.
Yeah, Graceland. We definitely had Graceland. We definitely had
bad era Michael Jackson.
We had Thriller was the one was on.
Oh,
Thriller,
yeah.
like Beat It. Like Beat It was like that intro to Beat It. Man, it's like before like how do you talk about Michael Jackson now? That intro to Beat, just that weird synthesizer intro to Beat It just sounded so. I remember that sounding just so crazy, and the drum sound. I remember the drum sound too, like. Just thinking like, what is that? And also, what was the other? There was a wonky Paul Simon one. There was a record called Hearts and Bones that had this awesome song called "Cars Are Cars" on it. Actually, it's probably a ridiculous song called "Cars Are Cars" that also had like a sick, really bouncy, rubbery like synth guitar synth line on it that really sticks out in my mind, and like another like insane kind of big '80s drum sound that I vividly remember, like just like that's like drums like stuck out at me.
Had you been
At that
playing
point.
drums at that
I
point?
think like I had been banging on. My cousin had a drum kit that I think that I discovered or was introduced to like really, really young, like 3 or 4. And when we would visit my dad's sister's son, and when we would visit them, I feel like my earliest memories of like spending time at their house was just sitting in their basement, like flailing, I think, in every direction at my cousin's drum set. And then like we had like a little pot and pan set up in the kitchen of my house growing up with I used chopsticks and
Nice.
just would wail, man.
Did you grow up in Philly?
Right outside of Philly, in a little town called Ardmore, which is it was like it was great. My next door neighbor was my friend, and we were like my everyday buddy, and it was great. Ardmore's great. The house we grew up in is still there.
Do your parents still live there?
They live in. No, we moved from Ardmore to this other town called Marion, which is like the next town over. And they live in. They moved after my sibling. I have 3 younger siblings, and after everybody moved out of the house in Marion, they moved to West Philly. My mom works at the University of Pennsylvania, so they moved to West Philly. And my dad was working at a school, also in West Philly. I can't remember. I can't remember what the name of it off the top of my head. It was a school for kids with like cerebral palsy. Until he retired, they still live in West Philly, and are still active as ever.
Was your mom a professor?
She's a nurse. She's a nurse midwife. She teaches. Yes, she teaches nursing. She was doing like labor and delivery at the hospital at Penn, but she's taught there. She doesn't do that anymore. She's taught in the School of Nursing for a minute, maybe 20 years. Maybe it's less than 20 years. A while. Maybe it's 10 years. She's good at it. She's really good at it. She teaches nursing and midwifery, and she teaches like there was a lot of like birth information. My mom has been like studying involved in like being a midwife, or studying to be a midwife, or being a midwife, or delivering babies. I feel like since like whenever like America Online was like this did whatever year that was, this free, there's like discs came out for 10 hours. Like once the internet happened, my mom was like all of a sudden becoming like, she was studying to be a midwife for that. Like, and for like, there was always like birth growing up in our house. There's lots of discussions of babies and photographs. And
did she deliver your kid?
No, she did not. But she like, it was actually incredible to have her there. We was at the University of Pennsylvania. She was sort of like,
You have an Ivy League baby.
yeah. Sure. I never considered it that way. They were great there. She was great to have her there because she's sort of like, there's lots of information coming at you in those moments. It was good to have her sort of as like she could translate like what doctors and the midwives were telling us and things we needed to do, and sort of helped. It was great to have her like support in that. She's pretty. My mom's pretty tight.
My mom's a nurse too.
Is she really?
Yeah, she's been a nurse since the mid-'70s.
Does she have like a specialty? Do nurses have specialties, or is she like?
She's done a few things. When I was growing up, she worked in emergency rooms.
Oh, wow.
And she's been in an urgent care center for the last probably about 20 years.
Is she still doing that right now?
She's doing it right now.
Man.
She doesn't give a
That's
fuck.
that's incredible. How is she doing? Do you talk like are you and your mom? I mean, you guys
Yeah.
close? Do you like?
I
talk
was
often?
trying to encourage her to take a leave of absence, because I selfishly was worried that she was going to catch COVID and die. But she doesn't seem very concerned about it.
I mean,
And she's also kind of like a nihilist, fatalist in a certain sense, where she'll say stuff like, "Well, if I die, I die. I've had a good life.
do you feel
There's
like she's
billions
being?
of people on the planet.
How do you feel?
More people should probably die. There's too many of us."
Is that how she really feels? How do you feel about it? Like, how does that make you feel when she says that? Is that how she is?
I think
That
it's how
seems like-
part of her feels. I think she's also a contrarian, and she enjoys making, saying that kind of stuff to incite emotions in her children and in other
Okay.
people. But
Yeah.
I think there's a logical argument to be made for what she's saying, and I think she makes it. But on the other hand, I have an uncle who has a compromised immune system, and my mom, very purposely canceled the trip to visit him because she doesn't want him to die. So it's a complicated. You'd have to ask her, but she has a very complex belief system.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, geez, there are people that are. I mean, there are people that truly believe that, like, I'm not trying to compare your mom. That there's that guy. I forget his name now too. That guy in Texas who was like, "I'm willing to die for the economy." Lieutenant Governor, I don't know.
No, I don't think my mom is willing to
No.
die for the
Well,
economy.
no, that's not-
she's
like, no, no.
She feels like
That's not what I'm
nursing is
suggesting.
her calling, and she wants to
Yeah.
help people.
That's not what I'm suggesting.
She's
That's what I'm
definitely
suggesting.
not. She's not a capitalist to that
No.
extreme.
No. I think that she's like, I guess, like, I don't know. Maybe she's like, is that like a form of humility? She's trying to be like humble about it. Like it is, because I mean,
She
it
was
is
raised
pretty.
Catholic
I mean,
too.
it is like, I mean, that is like, maybe, yeah, okay, there you go. So it's like, maybe it is like pretty noble. Like, is there like does Catholicism and like nobility, they don't really go hand in hand or whatever? Like, I mean, that is like,
But
little bit.
martyrdom does. Go
yeah,
hand in
martyrdom,
hand
I guess.
with-
Like, I mean,
with
but she's not like,
Catholicism.
I don't know. Like, it doesn't sound like she's a martyr. And I'm not trying to suggest she's
No.
like, being like, I don't know. Like,
She's not Catholic either anymore. She became
Oh.
an atheist as soon as she could.
Okay.
But there's residue. I mean, do you still go to church?
No. And I mean,
Do you still believe in God?
no. That's an interesting question.
Like on a fundamental level. I mean, I'm not
mean,
even
not
talking
like
about
God,
Catholic
like
dogma.
God from the Bible. I mean, no, I don't believe in that. But like, that's not to say that there isn't some great. Like, I do think like what I took away from the upbringing. Like, we were raised Catholic. Like my that belief system. We weren't like it wasn't. We weren't like we didn't go to church regularly. We went on like holidays, but we did have like a regular. I did go to like a very like sort of free form like theological Sunday school discussion group every week that like my parents would like, and I did enjoy like some aspects of it, of like like I liked the story of Noah's Ark and stuff like that, but like I think it's just an interesting story. But like I think I took away like not like necessarily a god or like some sort of like dictating over like spiritual overlord, but just like the greatest, but like there is probably something greater out there, right? Like we can't be like the greatest. What Earth and this and like in all of the galaxy, there is like some. I guess like what was the question again?
Well, are you a believer?
Oh, I mean. No, just like in like not. I believe that like humans like aren't like the greatest ultimate like all. Like there's got to be some other sort of greater spiritual element out there. Whether it's like, it's just some sort of like force, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's probably something like some sort of thing exists like that. It has to be like, it's like there in like music and in like creativity and like spontaneity. Like that's like. I mean, without even getting too deep, that's like one area you can look at like yeah, there's your fucking greater. There's a greater force than like, you know, humans.
So when did you start playing a real drum set of your own?
I probably got one. I think I got one when I think I was asking. I had been asking for one for a while when I was probably like 11 or 12. I think I got one. I think my parents got one out of like a newspaper. There's like an ad. Somehow found an ad for one, maybe at the local music store. I got a like a 1, 2, 3, 4 piece, like a kick drum, 2 rack toms, and a floor tom. It was a Remo kit. It was like a Remo. It had Remo heads, but it was also a Remo kit. Something
It was fiberglass.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are
like
great. I know those
Yeah.
kits.
Did you like? It was like really had like the 2 skinny poles that came out of the kick drum, and I didn't have. I had a snare drum that my mom somehow had gotten, and I didn't have like. I sat on her like sewing stool, and I didn't have a kick pedal. I would just kick the kick drum with my foot, and I had one.
That's how they came up with the name kick drum, because
I mean, it makes
prior
sense.
to pedals, people just kicked it.
It made sense. I mean, I did that for a while. I kicked that. I just used my foot for a while. It worked. It like I don't know if I gleaned any benefit from it, but it certainly didn't like hold me back, man. I don't remember. I remember getting a kick pedal. I remember getting a kick pedal like years later, 3 years later maybe, and just being. It was like a glorious moment. It was really just like, oh my God, I can finally sit a little bit lower down. I don't have to sit so high up and kick this thing. I can get like a lower stool and have this like sweet. It was one of those Ludwig Speed Kings. It was made of all metal. Dude, so sick. Wish I still had that pedal.
Gene Krupa to John Bonham played those.
Yeah, I mean...
They actually started remaking them.
Man.
Just recently.
So, just going to have to write that down to look at later.
Yeah.
Speed King remake. Yeah.
How did it feel in your body when you had that kick drum pedal and you had your own drum set and you would sit down and play?
Oh, man. I could like... I mean, like, you know, it's like that. It's like I mean, pretty indescribable. Just like... I feel like I could go for. I used to be able to go for hours. It felt like just like exploring how it really like it opened up a ton of new ways to like just interact with that drum kit, and like I think at one point when we like moved. It used to be in the attic, and then we moved a couple of years. Like after I got like maybe a year or two after I got the drum kit, we moved, and then it moved to the basement. And like when the drums went in the basement, it was like the attic I would play for a while, but when they went into the basement, it was like a little bit more of a cave. There was less light. It was like you could lose track of time, and that's when like that's when it really started to like really you just lose hours. I feel like I would come home from school and just sit in the basement and play drums until dinner time. And thinking about it now, I am really grateful for my parents for like putting up with that. Probably what seems in my mind like every single day. They had 3 other children besides me. And it was like freeing. I think my mom has definitely talked about it actually, and she said like, you know, I always knew where you were. You were just downstairs. I could hear you throughout the whole house. If I wanted to know where you were, if the drums were going, I knew exactly where you were. And I was like, well, you know, I could just go. And so I can still just go to if I'm in the right scenario. If I have like, you know, back then it was just like I feel like it was just free flailing, rolling, just like endless. It's a little more difficult now. Like once you start to get ideas about things and how to like actually do things, but like there's something about like
right. It's like the difference between a baby just blabbering and
Yeah.
then learning
Yeah.
words and trying to form more specific
Yes,
ideas.
that's exactly it, man. That's exactly how articulate of you. See, gosh, I'm trying to get more. I don't know how to become more. I'm really not that articulate when it comes to stuff like this. But that's exactly it. Like endless blabber, man. I could just fucking blabber. It feels like it, man. I wish I had like.
Would you try to learn other people's beats at the time?
I mean, some of them, like not. I definitely had like we had a pair of we had some really shitty headphones. I remember like trying to wear headphones to play along to songs, and that didn't really work. And I was trying to play like not religiously. I mean, there was like I feel the first like beat I remember really being completely like blown away, confused by, and like just totally enchanted by was fucking Barocus, Chinese Fork Tie.
Zach Brokus, Jawbox, yes.
Yes, it's a Jawbox song. That I bought like it was like that was one of the first drum beats that like I feel like I was maybe jeez, I don't know. I can't. Dates are fuzzy. I want to say I was like 14 or 15 when I heard that song, and I was just like all of us, all my friends, even people who like by that point I had been like maybe jamming with some people at that point, and it wasn't just like my one drum friend or two drum friends. It was like all the other people who were like my three other friends, who like my guitar playing buddy, my two bass playing friends or whatever. Like we were all just like. Who's gonna figure this beat out first? This is no one like no. That was like the first like I'd heard like I think at that point even like at that point it was like 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover was probably the other one too.
Steve Gadd.
The Gadd beat. Yeah, that was the one. Like I definitely remember sitting trying to figure that beat out, and then like just still not even being able to like still trying to figure that beat out actually. And then Chinese Fork Tie was the other one that was just like this explosively like whoa, yeah, like that was definitely like that's what you can do with drums. It was sort of like that was definitely an aha moment. And then like I do more like trying actually now I have got a better pair of headphones now. So like now I've tried to do a little more like recently like sitting down instead of just like blabbering, like trying to come up with ideas, like trying to like figure out more beats now, like using a nice decent set of headphones and like playing along to other records. And maybe just trying to like, do it wrong and hopefully get something unique or whatever.
When did you start playing shows and making records?
We started like writing. We definitely played a show in my parents' basement for like my friend's older brother and I think my younger sister.
When you say we, who are you referring to?
So we was like I was in a band. I started. We moved when I was in. I want to say going into like the summer before 7th grade, and I was mad about that. And I remember definitely having temper tantrums at like 7th grade, however old you are then, like 12 or 13 maybe. Definitely being like an angry like young teenager, and a dude from up the street, Adam Rigger, came down like when we moved, like 2 or 3 days after we moved in. He walked down the street, he played guitar, and it was totally like our parents had talked, and he was sort of like, oh, I heard, it's kind of like I think I was throwing a ball against the wall, and he was like, oh, I heard you play the drums, do you want to like jam sometime or whatever. And that was like that was like the first time I'd played with another person. And like so we had a band called had like 10 names. It was like the same band, the same dudes, had like 10 names, and we definitely had like I think the utensil or Not For Resale was the like the last name of the band, and we played.
Somebody saw a sticker on
yeah
on
for sure.
something from a bulk container and
Laffy Taffy or something like that. Like it was like maybe we had the big argument was like not whether Not For Resale was a good enough name. It was like whether we should use the word "the" in front of the title. Like I think somebody got really mad because they wanted to call it "the Not For Resale," which is, I mean, those just like wonderful, like, oh man, we were really into it. We were really like we believed in it. We weren't like it wasn't like, I feel like a lot of stories are about like we played music because like I don't know if like somebody like it's like, oh, if you play drums like you'll get like a girlfriend or whatever. And we were just like, I feel like we just like we're like, it was like play sports or do this, and we are like, this is like way more fun than like strapping on some rollerblades. We're just gonna like try and we tried to write we wrote songs. I mean, maybe they were like we wrote songs in like seventh grade. We were like writing. They weren't. I mean,
did you like the songs at the time?
At the time, I don't think the concept of like even like I don't know. I didn't like. I don't think I even grasped what we were writing. Maybe I grasped what we were writing a song. It was just like this part and then this other part.
Right.
And when we do this part, you play on the ride. Or like, there was a lot of that at the beginning, you know. Try to do it more like, I was always trying to write like, I was always trying to like rip off like early Green Day riffs. Like I was very, very into Green Day at one point, and like, that like, really bippity bappity Trey Cool drumming. That's like, I was so into that, and I was always trying to inject that. And it was more like, no, play this a little more straight. It was like, I'm trying to remember who my friend was into. I can't remember. It was more like, yeah. Okay. I forget where I lost my train of thought there for a second.
You were into Green Day, and I know what you're talking about because I experienced a similar phenomenon in one of my early bands where I just wanted to play fast, like D.H. Peligro from Dead Kennedys, and the other guys in the band were obsessed with Weezer, so they would write these melodic, hook-laden songs, and I would shit all over them.
Yeah. Yes.
Just trying to play as fast as possible.
They were like, they were into like, I was into like, maybe started off getting a little more into pop punk, and they were definitely like into like Metallica, and then it was like, and then all of a sudden, very quickly, it became like we didn't playing shows. We started off like we played like two block parties in a row, like 7th and 8th grade. Like I met these dudes. They're the first dudes I ever played, like first time I ever played music with anybody else, and we played like the block party that year, and then we played in my parents' basement, and then like maybe we played like and then we played the fucking 8th grade dance. When I was in 7th grade, we played the 8th grade dance. That band was definitely called Utensil, and we definitely played our own songs, but we also did like, I think we covered Nothing Else Matters, and I think we covered the David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, and that was like, there was like a, I think we had, and we played the talent show that year too. Those were like the shows that were available to us. It wasn't until like, I mean, it was just like, I don't think at that point it was even like the concept of shows. It was like, oh, here's an opportunity for us to like do our shit in front of some people. It wasn't like I hadn't experienced anything other than like, up until that point, I think I'd seen like, my parents took me to see Paul Simon in Central Park in like 1990. I was 10, and that was like my concert experience. I think I saw like a couple kids concerts growing up, but like it was definitely a concept that came to me through other people. They were like, oh, we'll write some tunes and then we'll play for people. And I was like, huh, I guess that's what you can do. That you can kind of, that's a thing that people do, and like if you do it on this level, and we just sort of like didn't really ever stop. Like it just sort of like we just kind of altered the ways that we thought it was cool to do it, I guess. I met some other dudes. We had a high school band. There was a guy, so like I think like there was that summer of like playing the block parties, and then the two guys that I was playing music with were a year older than me, and they went off to high school a year before me, and I was in 8th grade and they went off to high school. They came back, and instantly I went to the same high school as our mutual buddy Arif Sleskatane. We both had a great, we went through the same music program. We had this like
Didn't
kick-ass
Kobe Bryant
teacher.
go to school with you guys too?
Yeah, dude. When I was a freshman in high school when Kobe was a senior. Arif and Kobe had some like crazy interaction where he was like, Kobe, like Arif was like playing drums on stage at the I only heard about this, I never saw it, but like apparently like Arif was just like on some sort of rolling riser that was spinning, playing a drum beat while Kobe was like rapping in front of the entire school. I don't know about what, but like it was just sort of like this impromptu thing that happened. It sounds incredible. He was like, Arif was 5 years older than me, so we were never at the same school at the same time. It was another one of those, like, actually, I remember being in middle school, and the high school jazz band came to the middle school to play, and my music teacher leaned over and was like, Sean, just watch Arif. And I did, and it was another one of those times, like, as with like a Barocas record or drum beat or something like that, it was one of those times where it was like, oh shit, I want to do that. That he has like the sickest feel. He's one of those dudes that he still does. He still has like a sick ass feel, and he can just like groove with like effortlessly with the best of them. But it was definitely one of those like he, I think, and he like, okay, so like when my bandmates went to high school, Arif was still there, I think, and he was sort of like the dude we were all in band, and he was like turning other dudes onto music. They came back and were like, we went from Green Day very quickly to like Hoover and the Crown Hate Ruin, and like there's a bunch of like DC music that we just sort of like that Discord switch, and like Fugazi came into the picture, and like fucking the Warmers record was around it there. Maybe someone had a Warmers record, and I remember being really confused by it, and but also being like pretty intrigued as well. And like we started like playing more, like it was sort of like, okay, we can start to shape this sound a little more. We can like maybe do a little bit more anger. Like had some ideas for like, we're all improving too, because like we weren't like, none of us were out like playing sports or anything. We were like every day, it seemed like almost every day we'd have like 7th and 8th grade, even 9th grade, we'd just be like, man, shredding in the basement. I was the drummer, so the drums were at my house. It was like the other dudes would come over, and my mom would like come down and interrupt us with like carrot sticks and hummus, and we'd be, just like furiously jamming for hours. And then we got all this new music after my band, like my middle school, high school bandmates went to high school, and it sort of changed a little bit then.
What did you want to do with your life at that time? Like, did it seem like a feasible path to become a professional musician?
I mean, no, I never thought about it that way. Like at that point, I remember like very adamantly thinking like, like that I'm not gonna pursue this. It was very like, it was very cool. I feel like to be anti at that point. It was like anti like pop radio and like the cool popular shit. I'm not going to do that. Like,
right.
I'm talking about like the contrarian attitude your mom had. Like I definitely was like, there was some of that in the culture of like the kids we all hung around with. There was definitely like, that shit's on the radio. What, I don't want any fucking part of that.
Right. You mean, you're talking about music that's rooted in punk rock, and that is anti-commercial.
Exactly.
Anti-professional.
Exactly. And I think part of like, I kind of wore that, I took that as like, I'm not going to fucking make money. I'm going to like, I was very like, one thing, like, however, like, I kind of just sort of, I mean, I'm not, when it comes to contriving shit, I'm not very like, I can't like make calculated guesses. I can't make shit. I kind of just have to throw myself into some things and kind of just react instinctually. And it, it's like, a lot of it's like trial and error. But I feel like I did get like, a lot of like support from my parents about like trying, like they were like, it was important to them that like we were passionate about something, and I feel like they were really supporting me to like kind of just throw myself at this. So like at that point, like it wasn't about like, I remember thinking at a very early age, like, or having an understanding that's like that music was always just going to be something that I did. Like I was always going to do it. I was like very early on, I didn't know like what that meant. It was like, it's always going to be a part of my life. And part of that was also like, no, I don't want to like pursue this professionally. I don't want to like, I saw it as kind of like, is it would sort of like just maybe like I thought that would be a risky maneuver, like it would distill the meaning of it, and I thought that I would like resent it if I had to.
Yeah, turning
Shape
something
like
that you love into a commodity.
yeah, and like maybe like part like I could like I can look at that also as like maybe in hindsight, I don't know if this is shitty or not. Hindsight, I was sort of like that's kind of like a cop out. Like maybe you just didn't want to like really test like maybe you didn't like maybe I didn't want to like was like scared of like maybe being like scared of being judged or something on something that I cared so much about or like but I also could have like it also is something to say like I'm just going to go for something and not care about what people think and just like there's maybe a twinge of regret that I didn't think about it a little bit more that way, but I probably like I wasn't smart enough to think about it that way back then either. I was still like for as much as I had learned about playing and like was trying to like play with other people and like playing in groups like in with like my neighbors and like my friends, also playing like in the school band and playing in the jazz band. Like I love playing in the jazz band too. Like that was like all about like getting better and like learning how to play with other people. But I was still like kind of fucking babbling. Like I was like actually like, kind of like unwilling to let go of that babble and just like was like for whatever reason for was like anti and like disestablishment as I do feel like I was pretty willing and like prided myself on like at least being like willing to try different things and like be creative with my instrument as well as like other instruments too, like messing with like it wasn't only drums, it was always like my mom growing up, my mom played the guitar. There's always a guitar around our house and I took piano lessons and like
your mom sounds pretty darn cool.
My mom was like, yeah, I mean, she was very encouraging. Like, but like both my parents are very cool. They're very different and like very like wonderful people in their own right. Like my dad is like kind and caring and like has done like social work the majority of his life and has like he was part of the church early in his life, like after college and like left and or was in the seminary and then he left and like but still like did like pursued his own like theological studies and like made his life about like helping other people. And my mom is definitely like artistic but like also has that same like wants to help other people and like be a nurturer but is like also artistic and very much like does not give a shit about what people think and like definitely like kind of is that sort of has that sort of like improvisational pursuit of a passion that sort of like like that little fearlessness that I think I have a little bit in that me. I wish I had a little bit more in me right now at this time. It comes in waves, sometimes like fucking jump out of a plane, other times. Well, no, not jump out of a plane, but you know what I mean? Like, well, it's pretty cool. Well, after high school, like, all the dudes that like I played in bands, like a band with in high school, they all went to college a year ahead of me. I kind of like, I went to, at that point I had a band which I met two other dudes. I met these two guys, at the end of my, like the end of my junior year of high school. And we ended up playing in a band together for my entirety of my senior year of high school, and we all ended up. They went to school, and I moved to DC. I moved to after high school. I wanted to continue to play music, and I was into a lot of the music that was going on in DC. These two guys that I had like just started intensely playing with, and like starting to get more creative with. They were also going to school in DC, and I had also applied to like my dad went to Catholic University, and I thought that like maybe I'd have a chance to get in there because of that, or he went there for a couple of years. And I also applied to the school called George Mason, which was in Virginia, because they had like this sort of, you could kind of like design your own, what was pitched as sort of like you could kind of design your own major. And it was a suburban like DC school, and I got in there and I went there for a year, but it was like I didn't really want to go. It's very that 1 year after high school was a really strange year for me because I ended up going to college in Virginia, just outside of DC, and I didn't really want to go to college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really even like thinking back on it. I think I wanted to play music. I wasn't really sure what like that meant at that time, or like how to even go about doing that. I also wanted to like not live with my parents. I didn't have a lot of stuff figured out, but I ended up at college for a year and really didn't like do much of anything other than drive my drums over to the practice space late at night. The music room in the music building had had some practice spaces. I had my drums in my dorm room. I would like haul them into. I'd borrow my friend's car and haul them into DC, and maybe have like we could play shows once in a while there. And I went to school there for a year, and then after that year, I moved into the city, into DC. I left college, and at that point we had like a year can do a lot for you, man. Like a year can like I feel like I showed up in DC trying to like made an attempt at the college thing and like really figured out pretty quickly it wasn't for me, but we were having like we started like playing shows. I was playing with these two guys, Ed and Mike. We had a band called Navies that we did there for a while, and like we were starting to like you could suddenly like book a show at a college. They had a space there. You could just book a show, or like you could rent the dance studio, and like all of a sudden you could start booking shows. And we had some friends who would book shows, and like we had a band, and there was some other like exciting shit happening at that time in DC too. I think like Q Not U had just started. There's a band there called Q Not U, and they had just started. They were a little bit older than us, and I think I remember meeting Chris Richards, and he was like really encouraging and also like this excitable fellow, and they were like a real band. We were still like sort of this kind of like just left my parents' basement, sort of trying to figure it out. I just like really just like we kind of just kicked around. I feel like I kicked around DC for like a year, like working like weird jobs, trying to figure out how to like play music and like play shows with people. And it took us a minute to figure out. I had some like the people that I was friends with, they were still all in college, and I wasn't really in college. I wasn't doing anything. I was building. Oh yeah, I had a fucking job building. I had this wacky job building guitar pickups in Virginia. I was living in DC in a 1-bedroom apartment with a friend of mine, and she had the bedroom, and I had a bed behind the couch, and I built guitar pickups way the hell out in Virginia for this guy Joe Barden. He had like really nice pickups, but he was like he was kind of a maniac. And I worked like some canvassing job for like an environmental company for a minute, and then we started this band. We figured out that we wanted to. We got to a point where we're just like, look, let's just like make a fucking recording ourselves. Let's try and put out a record ourselves. We all have jobs. At a certain point, we all had like somehow we had like gotten a little bit of money together, and we did a recording at my friend's house called Eternal Life, and that was fuck, man, I keep going off on these crazy tangents. I'm so sorry. I'm losing my train of thought here. That was when it really started to like. That was probably that was when I was like 20. Yeah, it must have been when I was 20. Because we had met those Q Not You guys, and yes, Black Eyes there was a band called Black Eyes that had just formed, and we were like starting to realize that if we wanted to like make a record and record it ourselves and put a record out ourselves and figure out how to book a tour. Like that's where we were at. And that sort of uh, we did with Navy, like, um,
And then it wasn't
yeah,
that much later than that that you met the guys in your current band,
yeah, yeah.
Piss
Okay,
Jeans.
so that's what it was.
So
Right,
how did you meet those guys?
right. So I met those. Okay, so we had this band called Navies for like 2 or 3 years in DC, and one of the later Navy shows. It was sort of like one of the later Navy shows was with. I think it was a record release show. Navy's did a record um, on. There was a label there called Love It that put out a Navy's record. And we did a record release show for it, and one of the bands that played was Piss Jeans. Um, and we played a show in DC, and then we played the next day. We played in Philly, and they were like this. They were insane. I had actually, excuse me, Piss Jeans, and there's another band that played. There's another band that played those two shows called Air Conditioning, and Air Conditioning were like this incredibly loud, like ridiculous. I'd never seen anything like them. They were just an insane pulsating noise band, and Piss Jeans were just like this out of control, like skronky punk band that we played 2 shows with them, and then right after that. That was like probably around my sixth. Right after that, maybe 6 months later, I ended up leaving DC. I think it was like two. It was right before I turned 25. So it was like 2006, 2006 or 2007, 2006. I left DC at the end of no. Okay, I'm sorry. It's the end of 2005. I left DC and moved to Philly, and Navy's at that point. We had toured the shit out of this like the 3 or 4 records that we made some cool music and put out some cool tunes. But we did a bunch of tour, like that was like kind of geared me. I moved back to Philly after like Navy's kind of fell. It was like very passionate about it. Navy's kind of fell apart very quickly, and I was very excited about that and felt very like proud of what we had done. And I kind of just I didn't have a job. I was running out of money. A bunch of the friends that I had made in DC had all moved. They'd all left. A lot of people moved to New York in like 2004. People don't really stay around in DC. You live like people. No one's from there. People live there, but no one's from there. And like a lot of people that I was close with had left. So I moved back to Philadelphia, thinking that I was going to like save up some money. It was a little bit more affordable place to live. I could sort of like regroup, and I lived with my parents for 6 months, and then moved in with a friend. And I got a job bartending in South Philly, and was going to just save up money and move to either like Chicago or LA to try to like. I had friends at both places, and I was going to try to play music with somebody. There were people in both places that I was like, I could probably figure out a way to like drag some drums out there and play music and figure it out. I was young enough that it was like, if it doesn't work out, doesn't matter. And while I was in Philly, I had written Matt Kozloff, the singer of Piss Jeans, I was actually trying to get in touch with the Air Conditioning guys. I knew that he was friends with them, and I wrote him an email about trying to play with them. That I knew that I had heard somewhere that they were maybe looking for a drummer, and that I was going to be in town for a little bit, and I was like, I should probably try and play with somebody. And he wrote back with their email, but also in the same email said like, well, Piss Jeans is looking for a drummer too. Would you be interested in like coming and playing with us as well? And I said, yeah, sure, of course. And it was sort of, I think that around the same time I started playing music with Air Conditioning, and then I met Matt at a record store, and he gave me a Jeans CD, and I think like that was like maybe a week after I'd emailed him, and then a week after that he was picking me up, and we were driving to Allentown to play in Dave's basement. Dave Rosenstrauss, who had he was the original Jeans bass player. At that point they were practicing at his house in Allentown, and I think it was like a weekend afternoon. Matt picked me up. We just kind of like had a very awkward like hello kind of thing, and pretty much just started playing, and it was like pretty it was pretty it pretty much worked right away. Actually, it pretty much sounded like my recollection is it sounded pretty kick-ass like immediately, which
So,
was like pretty great.
what did that band represent to you at the time that you joined it, and how has its place in your life evolved over the years?
I mean, at the time, it was like an exciting. It was like a really different situation. I was really like I was still pretty unsure what I wanted to do. I was having by that point like I had by that point I'd been working in like bars and restaurants probably for about 4 or 5 years, and at that point it was like a way to sort of I think I got into it as a way as like an outlet for creativity. I had been like I knew that Piss Jeans was a band that toured, and I knew that I wanted to like figure out. I knew that I wanted to basically like be in a band and to play, and I think that at that point it represented an opportunity to do that. The same reason I was trying to get in touch with those air conditioning guys was I think because I saw them as both as like that they, among other things, that they knew how to like either like books like basically like have a rehearsal like function as a band. They knew how to like function as like be a like play shows and pack gear into a van and go. And at that point, it didn't seem like I knew many people who could do that, and that's something I wanted to do. So like I think that like shockingly, I don't know that I actually necessarily I don't know I don't think I necessarily had any expectations when I went into Piss Jeans other than like let's see it how it works. And it was sort of like it instantaneously worked. And I think that they had already had, for whatever reason, like a couple of shows booked and needed to play. Like we needed to play shows. We played shows pretty quickly after. I think the first like 3 shows that I played in Piss Jeans, we only had like 3 or 4 songs, and I really remember feeling like these two songs sound pretty much the same. I'll know when I get to the chorus which song it is. Just sort of try to hang in there, and like like really unfamiliar. And then all of a sudden it just sort of quickly became pretty familiar pretty quickly. It became like, I mean, I think that it wasn't like none of it was like really contrived or like really planned. It was just sort of like I think that it was like we all genuinely wanted to play, and I think that we were just like fortunate enough to I don't know. I think that like I don't know what it here's me with the not super articulate thing.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
How do you come up with drum parts for that band?
I sometimes they come. I mean, geez, I don't know.
Is it something that you have to think about?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes like I intend. Like sometimes they're made with intent. Sometimes they're purposely made with no intent. Sometimes somebody else has an idea for a drum part, and I try to like coax their vision out of them. Sometimes there'll be like some other song that we're informed by that has sort of either a feel or a part. We really have like a pretty. We have a pretty like organic way still of making things. There's lots of like people come in with specific ideas. People come in with specific parts. Sometimes like Matt will come in with he'll write it. Sometimes Matt will just like have like a treatment in his mind for a song, and he'll like explain it, and we'll spend like a practice trying to like get it from like bring it to life. I know it sounds so cheesy, but like make it a thing, or like get it out of it, or like interpret his idea. Or sometimes like like our Brandy will write an entire fucking song, or I'll just have some sick riff, or Brad writes like in total song, like entire songs, or sometimes it'll be very specific. I'll have a specific drum beat in mind, and other times it's, you know, it comes like, it's not any one specific way, which is really like, I think one of the, it's not even, it doesn't pertain to just the drum parts. It, like the songwriting as a whole and Piss Jeans is really like, there's no routine. There's no like, there's no normal to it.
Would you say it's like a relatively democratic band?
I mean, sometimes, yeah, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. A lot of time, like not, I mean, they're like, we're all like, I feel like, it just depends. I mean, I think we're all comfortable. We've been playing together for long enough that we're all comfortable enough that, we kind of know when, so you know, people come in with tunes and like are assertive about them, and other times people come in with tunes and are just like, are not, and we sort of are we're good enough at like communicating with words, and like I guess like maybe like we were all comfortable enough with each other that we sort of all know how to interpret that, and we don't always get it right all the time, but there's always like misinterpretations, or people like misread, or sometimes someone gets annoyed or frustrated, but sometimes it can be really democratic, and we just sort of, it still somehow doesn't seem all that forced, which is like I feel pretty fortunate. It feels like it sounds a little cliche, but like, you know, it's sort of like, it is one of those times, at least for me, it was one of those times. The first time I played with those guys, I was like, oh, like pretty instantly, like, oh, this is going to work. And it's still, I mean, it's still, I don't want to say exactly that, but it's pretty close. It's still working, and it's still like sort of unfolding itself, to us.
Your life has gotten bigger in the years since you've joined. You own a bar and restaurant, Lunar Inn, and you have a child. How has the band's role in your life changed over time?
I mean, the role in my life. What is the role it even plays in my life? Well, I mean, we definitely have better excuses for being as, you know, as sluggishly active as we are. We're not a very we're not a very active band, and I think that you know, it seems like we've maybe been doing it with a little bit more intent now that we've all had children. Everybody in the band has kids.
So time away from family is more valuable and scarce.
Maybe, and scarier, and also like maybe needs to be like, you know, I don't want to like, it needs to be a little bit more thoughtful, but also like definitely as a it's just like it definitely like made it like it's a new way of like funneling things through the genes. Like I really feel like we kind of have. I feel very fortunate because I think we have sort of this. I don't really know how to describe it. I feel like we could take a tune and like you can squeeze it through our filter and it will come out on the other side of the genes, you know? So like we've kind of now have these we all now have these like kind of new experiences to draw on. Like the well has not runneth dry. There's all sorts of new things to like, you know, that's where I'll whine and complain and like happily go along with like stamping my foot and acting like openly, you know, selfish and petulant, if only to get those inner feelings out and like expose them is like through the genes. And those are like dudes that I feel very fortunate also to have that environment in which I can like act like a spoiled brat and rage and like get those feelings out and like throw it into playing live or making music, and then sort of can stand up and walk away and be like, all right, it doesn't come out in other points in my life, like maybe at my kid or at my girlfriend or, you know, my friends or other people in my life that I don't want to like. It's a great fucking outlet, you know.
What was the impetus to start your own bar and restaurant?
My girlfriend and I and our two friends have all worked in bars and restaurants for a long time, and all have strong opinions about how things should and shouldn't be done with regards to everything from like, how what restaurants should offer and what sort of comforts they should provide, to how to be a compassionate and like empathetic and understanding and supportive boss, and create an environment where like people want to come to work every day, and place where I want to go to work every day, and like also at the same also have like a well run, like thoughtful business. There's a lot of bartenders and restaurant workers and cooks and servers and management people and people in the service industry. Everybody talks about like, one day I'll have my own restaurant, and there's part of us that like, had seen so many people talk about it, and us as well. We decided to see how far we could take it, and like really made up our minds that we weren't going to stop working on it until like somebody else or some other greater force told us that we couldn't or shouldn't be doing this. And we made it all the way to the opening up our own we opened up a corner neighborhood joint in March of 2019. And it's been what a hell of a year to open a business. We had I really am so, what made me want to do it ultimately to establish like a sense of community and support for like people in our, it sounds like maybe self-righteous or something, but or like I'm just trying, have a place that like creating a safe space that people can come and feel like anybody can come in there and feel welcome. I feel like there's no quota on places like with that mentality. It's that people can come and feel like welcomed, comfortable, and like easy to hang out. The more of those places that we have, the better. And also as a stable working environment, we have more than, I feel like we have, at one point we had as many as 18 people in the last year working all together at one point, and to just have a supportive place that everybody can come together and work, and that we have the opportunity to offer these incredible people jobs, and to the just insane shit that I've learned from working alongside everybody that I've been lucky to work with in the last year has, I feel like my head has been spinning for the last 18 months just with the amount of new and incredible information that I've gleaned from working with just amazing people and running this business, and it's man, there's just no way. It's like that industry. It's like playing drums, man. There's no way to describe it. It's just this insane, quaking ball of light that I've just been I feel I've been fortunate to exist inside for the last year. And I'm just hoping, and I really do believe that we're going to continue to harness this quaking, beautiful thing. It's really difficult right now. But I think that we're going, I don't know. I just believe that we're going to make it somehow.
I believe you will too.
And thank you.
That's not just pure conjecture, because I did grow up in a restaurant family. And I said my mom was a nurse, but my dad owned restaurants, and his father worked in restaurants, and my great-grandfather had one of the first Chinese restaurants in Milwaukee, where I grew up. And so I grew up in a third-generation restaurant family, and I spent a lot of time working in restaurants.
Do you miss it? Do you still work in? Do you ever think about it?
No. What I was going to say is the reason why I think that you're going to succeed, despite the setbacks presented by the pandemic, is that you already made it. If you made it past a year and you were doing well, then you can make it again, even if you had to start from scratch, which you won't, because you still have your reputation, you have your relationships, and you have the knowledge from that first year and a half. And I think you'll be able to do it again. And you have the passion, obviously.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks, man. That's all very. That's what just the kind words to say. Thanks for saying that. I mean, yeah. I mean, It's not an easy. It's not an easy thing.
It's an incredibly difficult business.
Yeah, it's not an easy. It is incredible. It is like really. It's a lot. It's just like a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's like pretty challenging, and it's like you have to kind of be able to make adjustments on your feet, like whether it's like standing next to a table of people or like staring at a week of spreadsheets and being like, how am I going to adjust for this week? And I think that I don't know. I'm not trying to make it out to be like more like it's like it's an important or like it's like I'm carrying some like we're carrying some sort of crazy torch or something like that. But to us, it's very important, and we do care. I mean, we all work there. We all work there every day. Like we're behind the bar and we're in the kitchen and we're there, trying to. I don't even want to say like execute a vision. We're just trying to like make sure that people feel comfortable. That's like really all that they feel like comfortable, and that they feel like better than that they leave feeling like maybe just a little bit better than they did when they came in, and like or like just got to say hello to someone that they didn't even expect to say hello. Like that's I don't know.
I feel better from having this conversation.
I mean, well, that's thanks. That's nice too. Like, I mean, that's really all that it is. I mean, I also love the history of like, that people used to just like, if you lived in a town, you would go to the local public house, and like, it's like a place to gather. I like, it's a place like, I like that people just, it's a place other than your own thing that you've made it somewhere else that like you can, gosh, now I'm thinking too much about it. When I think too hard about it, it starts to not work when I think too hard about it. I just have to kind of be instinctual about it and like react to it and just like have conversations with people. I like that. I like talking to people, and I like hearing about what people's days have been about. And I like, trying to, with what feeble, like fatherly humor I have to like make people laugh, or maybe give them like, some like a beer that I've really been liking, or just being friendly and comforting, and like knowing that I want people to like not be alone. They can see me, and
If I was sitting at a stool at your bar,
yeah,
and I wanted a drink, what would you suggest?
Oh man, oh my God, I'd be like, what would I suggest? For being from out of town, I would suggest something local to our like Philadelphia. I'd probably offer you some like a dad said, like if I'm drinking whiskey, I like to drink I'll drink like a Manhattan with a little bit of extra vermouth, stirred in a glass with a little bit of ice, and I would probably offer you something like that, because that's what I would drink. Well,
we're gonna have to get together on Zoom sometime soon, and we can play virtual drinking buddies.
I'd love to. If you want to get wasted.
No, I don't want to get wasted. I definitely.
You want to get wasted on the internet, man? I'm down. Or if you want to just have like you want to slug one or two.
I want to get responsible on the internet, if that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. You want to? Should we we could take notes on moderation? We could experience moderation together on the internet. I'm fine with that, man. I'm totally good with that.
Well, Sean McGuinness, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, hey, man, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me just babble and Sean. Thanks, man.
The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set, and visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.